Well, I don't know.
Well, that was underwhelming.
Hey guys, welcome to episode 48 of CMD Tower's Brews and Builds. I'm Mr. Commodore 5, and my fellow host may or may not be making another plug for Rock Creek Brewing, Big Tuck.
Hey, cats and kittens, how are
You're not tricking us
today? I'm not doing this. I'm not doing that anymore. But that is a good preview for the deck, and subsequently my feelings for it. So, hello everyone out there in the multiverse. How are we doing? Mr. Combo, always a pleasure to see you. And I am, in fact, drinking a delicious 9% King's Brew Imperial Stout from Rock Creek Brewing, who I need to talking to about a little bit of that sponsorship cash.
Oh God, I'm doing all right.
Or suds, if you will.
Love the upcoming 3-day weekend as we're recording this the day before. I guess it'd be last Thursday. So love corporate world. Love getting that Friday off. It's been a crazy week for me because I work in the IT industry and sales, and July 1 is when all the public sector gets New Year money. And so everyone is just like, I need quotes for this. I need to place POs. I need to get with project managers. And so it's just been a whirlwind every single day. But, that's kind of what I signed up for, because I'm sure it's going to get super dead here in about a week or two, because everyone has just, no one's really been able to travel because of COVID, and everyone's just stocking up their vacation days. And it's not like companies are going to be like, oh, sorry for COVID, we're just going to pay you out your vacation. So I think people are just going to start just taking time off and just stay at home.
Classic. I used to do that at Verizon because we get so much vacation. I'd take like a 2-week staycation and just sit at home.
What a waste.
Well, Tuck, how are you doing? I know friend of the show, Tice, is on his way.
He is. He's driving in from Denver, I think, so I'm very much looking forward to spending some time with him.
Mr. Combo's turn to drink now.
Oh, yeah, there it is.
There's that water.
So that's, exactly. You gotta keep it moist in there. So I'm really looking forward to that. The position that I took at the new company, the new position at the same company, has also been insane. I think we talked yesterday, and I went from talking to you at 7:30 to talking to my manager at 8 at night for 45 minutes. So that's getting a little long in the tooth there, but it's okay. Change necessitates change, all that stuff. So I'm looking forward to hanging with Tice, looking like it's going to be a nice blistering hot weekend here. Go spend some time with my brother and just hopefully relax a little bit. So we'll see if that actually comes to fruition, which it usually doesn't for me.
Well, I hope that you have some relaxing times in your future. And guys, thanks for tuning into our episode. And as always, with the Manolith commentary from Bridge Chaos Record Studio is Squee McGee.
Well, here I am, still tracking on the Manolith thing, but no, I'm doing
not
good.
Going away.
It's been a good week.
Still tracking on it.
We brewed Fest beer at KC Beer Co. this week, so that's our season for the fall. We ran the most bottles we ever run in a single run. We did 47,000 beers yesterday almost, which was awesome. So the cooler's full of Fest beer. That'll be coming out sometime in the September-October range. Ooh. And I'm excited for y'all to try it. It's goddamn delicious. In the meantime, I want to keep drinking them before you get them.
Well, you know what? I'm going to let you keep drinking them because, guys, the way that you can support our terrible alcohol habit is to support our sponsor and all the content that we do over at level1gameshop.com. They sell magic accessories like that sweet exclusive CMD Tower playmat and Matt Hunter Pack sleeves. They also do have the great TCG player store with all your singles and your very good pricing. We do not get any money from them, but if you go buy stuff from them and mention, hey, CMD Tower sent you here, then they'll know that these monthly giveaways are actually worth the money. And let me tell you, this month's giveaway, if you didn't hear last week, is pretty sick.
It's a real doozy, as we say in the industry.
But if you do want to help us financially and be able to help us buy more beer, head over to our Patreon, patreon.com/CMD Tower. We have 4 different pledge levels, and rewards vary from just getting access to that exclusive Discord or getting your own set of signed CMD Tower playmat and sleeves. And of course, the free way is just to share the content you're watching or listening to. Hit the subscribe button, share it on your social media, send it to your grandma. I don't really care, because every little bit of interaction from the collective does help. In every episode, we love to give our shout out to Pink Royal. Thanks for the music, because if you didn't do that, I guess we would just come in silent.
I just get if Pink Royal didn't exist, there's a very mediocre chance I might still be dating someone, because the whole thing fell apart at a Pink Royal show in December.
Hey, that was a good show.
So long story there, it was a great show.
But guys, make sure you stay tuned until the end so you guys can get details on how you can win our mystery draft kit for 4. in July's giveaway.
So sweet.
So Brews and Builds is our deck series, and it's all about the decks that Big Tuck, our guest, and I have in our Path to 32. In every episode, we talk about one of those Path to 32 decks, but hey, in a cool manner of brewing beers, because clearly we're experts in that. So, we broke it down into 4 categories. The first one's rampant setting your board state. That's the grain bill.
Yes, and grains are a foundation of every beer. They include both base malts and specialty malts. Specialty malts being the roasted coffee and chocolate in this guy here, usually at about a 60-40 ratio. This helps with the color, the taste, and most importantly, the alcohol content of the beer. Decks always need ways to grow, stabilize, and ramp into your bigger threats. And just like a grain profile, they're usually a mix of staples and specialty cards.
The next one's going to be, how does your board interact with the rest of the board? Those are hops.
And hops give the beer its patented bitterness and herbal floral flavors. They grow in a variety of strands and help distinguish subcategories like IPA. Our hop choices help clear and interact with the board so your deck can do what it wants.
And then the next thing is going to be, how does your deck actually close out or win, or in this deck's case, make your opponents concede? Ugh. This is yeast.
Yuck. And yeast are microorganisms that eat the sugar from the grain and poop out alcohol and CO2. It adds the alcohol content and the carbonation. Without yeast, your deck would be drinking flat sugar water. And without yeast cards, your deck would be the one that we're talking about today.
Then we have shenanigans. These can be pet cards or synergies in the deck that are just kind of fun. Doesn't really have a place. Like this one, I think, has the most unique spices, unlike the seven dwarves one, which 7 of it was dwarves. We're calling that a spice package.
And not every beer has them, but spices and other additives help separate a normal stock beer from a specialty one. It could be the pepper that turns a stout into a jalapeno stout, or the addition of hops that turn IPA into a double IPA. Not every deck has something that makes it pop, but if it does, this is where we talk about it.
And then lastly, we do have a bottle capping. These are going to be Big Tuck's, our guests, and I's recommendations and cuts to the deck that are going to be under $5, under 50, and a personal recommendation that has no budget. The only restriction is no mana-only lands. So without further ado, let's get brewing. You know, we talked, we've kind of went off this a little bit, but now we're kind of getting back on, or it just seemed to work out that way to where one of us would talk about a color pairing and then months later the other person would do it. So initially we had talked about Big Tuck's Azorious, kind of token Voltron-y type deck. Now we're talking about my Azorious, which is probably the least fun deck that people like to play against, which I don't understand why, because I always die very, very quick.
Oh yeah, I wonder why.
I don't make it long. So we're talking about Lavinia institutes a citywide lockdown. This is Lavinia, Azorious Renegade, and when I saw this card get previewed in Return to Ravnica, correct? Or Ravnica Allegiance?
I think that's Allegiance.
RNA? Yeah. I knew I wanted to build the deck, but initially when I picked it, I was like, oh, this is like not as bad Gaddock Teague. So, and it'll fit the colors. There's really nothing Azorious. Like, the only Azorious I really knew of was like Brago. Wasn't going to do that because that's worse than this deck, to be frank. So
it actually ends the game though, so debatable.
I don't know. Every time I saw Mike play his Brago deck, he just kind of won the game by making people quit because we had no lands and no permanents.
Fair point.
But Big Tuck, why don't you read what Lavinia does so people can understand the horror that is this
card? Do I have to? All right. She is a 2/2 legendary creature, human soldier for Azorious. She's a rare, and it's funny. The people talk a lot about hate bears in this game, which are 2/2s for 2 that have another ability, and she's the queen of the hate bears, if you will. Each opponent can't cast non-creature spells with converted mana cost greater than the number of lands that player controls. Whenever an opponent casts a spell, if no mana was spent to cast it, counter that spell. I told Jace that Ravnica would fall apart if he didn't take his responsibility seriously. I didn't want to be right. Horrible flavor text, and I've realized part of my difficulty with reading these cards is when they're in foil on tapped out, it like blurs it slightly, so that's making an already hard task even harder.
Well, and here's the thing with Lavinia, and the reason I didn't initially think the deck was going to be that bad, because if you read it on its face, it's okay. So you can't cast non-creature spells greater than the number of lands you control. So what does that do? That stops the person from like the turn 1 land, Soul Ring, Mana Crypt, like just going.
Yeah.
So I'm calming those people down, and then you can't cast free stuff. Well, sure. Like who would be really anti that? But there's so many ways that I can force you into that to where it just it's so good. And always being able to get her down turn 2. Kind of stops ramp. You know, if I go first, it's just I kind of hose everyone. Sure. If I go last, it's not as bad, but I still feel like early game, it still is somewhat prohibitive. Big Tuck, how have your experience been playing this deck?
Well, I hate this deck. This is easily probably the least favorite deck that you own, I would think. I can't think of one I hate more, because even the infinite combo ones that you run end the game, right? And you can still kind of play
Magic. Joda was my most hated deck.
Well, that's also probably because you actually play that deck as opposed to this one. So I was like, when you're talking about this, I was like, yeah. I don't like infinite combos. I hate stacks. I hate them. I think it's the least fun way to play. But again, as talked in the deck that people actually quite liked, this is like the perfect pizza deck, which is weird because most people, when you play this deck, you're also kind of not doing anything. So most people, they would think that's not eating any pizza at all. But in your play style, it gets it there. So I actually do like her as a commanderess, if you will, to be completely honest. I think I do think she's like a more fair Gaddock Teague in some sense, right? Where like it actually ironically feeds into more of the game that I like. That's not quite as explosive. It's a little more toned down, right? Like you kind of build up. However, since Gaddock Teague is in white and green, there's really not a ton of options specifically. Like there's a handful in white that are more stacksy. There's really not that much in green. So when you build that deck, you kind of build it in a different way. Whereas this one, you threw in all of them, and it's a complete nightmare. So I get what this deck's trying to do, and I picked some cards that I'm actually kind of positive on. There's a few in here that I think are very cute. But as my last act of rebellion, there are 32 hops in this deck, and I intentionally chose to drink a beer that has 0 hop profile in it.
Wow, just the rebelness. So from a CMC standpoint, I was pretty proud.
Yes, me too.
Three.
So is that just broken, right? Because I
think it is.
There's got to be something weird with that, right? I was also very surprised by that. And one thing, and just before we get off this, last thing I will say is I don't know if you did this intentionally or not, but you do run like the thing that I do, which makes it somewhat interesting. I wish that we could kind of dive a bit more into this. Is like a lot of the things that you play that are stacks pieces are like creatures, right?
Oh, sure.
Which I think is I like that a lot, and I wish that we could just kind of push a little bit more in that direction in terms of some other things. But anyways, yeah, like Curve 3.0, no idea how that happened. The mana thing, was that, I'm guessing this was before, since you have 11 planes and 12 islands, I'm guessing this was made before we even did this, right?
Yep,
100%. Because that is my MO. I'm very aware of that. And this deck comes in at a cool, pretty big range, like 1,000 to 1,700. But I was looking through this, and like there's like probably 10 cards in here that you have that like you could build something that's almost identical to this deck and swap out like a handful of pieces and cut down the lands and build this for like $400 or $500 if you
considering here's the thing, guys, the reason it ranges up so high is I do have a Expedition Mana Crypt. I have a Judge promo Force of Will. I have a foil Rhystic Study, I have a foil Linvala, and then literally those 4 cards together is over $1,000. So that's why it's so expensive. But yeah, you know what? Let's just get into this.
Yeah, let's get this over with.
Let's get this over with.
I'm gonna put my positive pants on.
Good.
And try to find some. I did find some things in here that I think will be interesting and fun to talk about.
Good. All right. So first, we're gonna start off with the grain build, guys, and the first one that I want to talk about. It's more grain than it is hops. And that's why I think it's kind of fun to talk about. And I think it's fun to see in the 99 because it lands and people don't just groan. It's like, that's annoying.
And also, I will also point out there's 15 options and half of them are mana rocks. So,
talking about Mana Crypt. No. I'm talking about Grand Arbiter Augustin the Fourth.
Sure, why not?
So hear me out. So 2 colorless Azorious, white, blue. It's a legendary creature, Human Advisor, the original Advisor Tribal. It is a rare. It's a 2/3, sitting at $17.
I don't know if it's been. I think it's only been reprinted twice, and there was a run where this was like the premiere, as former friend of the show or whatever we're calling him, Mikkel, kind of pointed out. It has only been printed twice. This was like the go-to Azorius stacks commander for years, right?
Sure.
Yeah.
But here's its abilities. It has 3. They're all static. White spells you cast cost 1 less to cast. Blue spells you cast cost 1 less to cast. And then the stacks piece, spells your opponent's cast cost 1 more to cast. I think it's more of a grain than a stacks card. The stacksing thing is a little annoying, but really it's in this deck because Azorious can't really ramp at all. So, this is a way that I'm able to maybe play a couple things per turn, knowing that I'm probably just going to be playing land go, maybe land rock go. So that's why I wanted to bring it up. Sure, you could look at it from a negative standpoint, but I look at it from a positive, half glass full.
And again, to be fair, if you will, this also is a creature, right? So it's like you can pay, board wipe, a 2-mana Path to Exile, which we just talked about, right? There we go, problem solved. So I think it's more oppressive. And again, it's not your commander, right? So the chance of you getting this out is, sticks in the wind.
Sure.
Right? Who knows?
Like 1.2% or 1 point something like that.
So I like that in and of itself. And it does feed into this. So I used to really hate this card, and I'm kind of like the more this card in particular, I'm kind of like warming up to, especially because it is so expensive. People aren't just going to throw into a deck for jokes. So again, it's a creature, dice removal, and it does kind of help speed up in this, right? And 100%. I think this is also kind of this also similar to your Vin Diesel deck. It's very rare where you're going to be playing more than like 1 or 2 things a turn, right?
Yep.
So this kind of gets you up to playing those bigger spells a little earlier.
Sure. Yeah, no, I totally agree. Well, what is your first grain card?
So I haven't seen this card in a while, and it's still expensive, and I like it a lot. So I want to talk through Dig Through Time.
Yeah, we are.
Is this yours? Yeah, okay. So Dig Through Time is 6 colorless, blue. It's an instant with Delve. For those who don't know, you can exile a card from your graveyard when you cast a spell to pay 1 less for it, and then what happens when it comes out, Mr. Combo?
So when it actually resolves, you get to look at the top 7 of your library, put 2 into your hand, and the rest on the bottom in any order. Amazing. This deck doesn't really have graveyard recursion, I think, at all. There might be a card that can do it. So I am perfectly fine exiling stuff out of my graveyard once you guys have blown up a whole bunch of things. Then for 2 blue, picking the 2 best stacksy things that I can and getting those to hand.
And you run like a lot of removal, a lot of counter spells, a lot of that stuff, right? And like you said, you're not getting them back. So I haven't seen, again, to your point, when you play this deck, I haven't seen you make it past like turn 6. So I really have no idea how it flows like super far downstream. But at some point, I can imagine in the early game, you're going to use a bunch of removal, just like stay alive, right? And a bunch of counter spells to keep people on the citywide lockdown. So then you have a graveyard full of juicy targets for something. Right, and now you have something to get. The fact that you get so obviously looking at 7, taking 2 is a good rate for 2, right?
Yep.
And I think the best part about this that I often forget, and I think a lot of people do, is that it's instant speed, right? So you can just wait your turn, use your removal, leave 2 up, and then get a fresh new 2 cards to annoy your opponents with.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with that. It is a card that I don't see played a lot, and I'm wondering if it is because it's $5.
Well, and so that's interesting. These used to not be that much, and then whenever Pioneer or whatever that one came, because this card was like banned. I think it came out and got like banned. Like this and Treasure Cruise both got banned in Standard right when they came out. So the prices like blotted out, and now they're back up to like 5 or more. So, but also like we've talked about many times, the prices indications right now are not anything to judge by.
Yep. It's funny. I'm actually seeing more and more people now offering up their Aber duels on the Facebook sell groups for sell. Initially, everyone was buying them. So I'm wondering if a lot of people with their COVID money just went out and just started spreading those singles. And now it's like, oh, wait, I have to pay rent. I should probably get rid of these cards.
This hasn't ended yet.
All right. Well, that was my second one. So my last one, once again, you're going to groan, but I don't think we've actually ever talked about the card, and it does feed into a card later in my Yeast package. So I wanted to talk a little bit about Smothering Tithe.
Oh, sure.
I want to say, which one's saltier, Ristic or Tithe?
I mean, Ristic is infinitely more annoying. How about that?
Okay. Smothering Tithe, 3 colorless white, enchantment, still at $15.
That's insane.
We need a reprint. Hopefully Commander Legends.
Yes, that'd be a good one.
Whenever an opponent draws a card, that player may pay 2 colorless. If the player does not, you create a colorless treasure artifact token with tap, sack, add 1 mana of any color.
Right.
So once again, I kind of mentioned it with Grand Arbiter. These colors do not generate mana as efficiently as other colors. I think that's almost where Gaddock Teague probably comes a little bit better off, because having the green in there, at least you could green ramp and get to where you need to be.
Or should I say agreed?
Ooh.
Bits.
But the other cool thing, and I'm not going to spoil it now, but there's a particular Yeast card where you need to be able to pay mana, but usually you can't do it. And with this card out, you just have the whole board on lockdown, and it's hilarious. But it's a card that obviously every deck that I personally think runs white should probably have. I can't see a reason why you would put it in every deck that runs white. Okay, well, I don't think we have anything else to say on Smothering Tithe. Pretty generic card. Tuck, what is your second card you wanted to talk about?
I am also going to talk about a generic card, which I think plays into the same idea as the last one. So I want to talk about land tax. I think we only talked about it one other time.
$40.
Yeah, right? It's bonkers. It's insane. So, land tax is 1 white. During your upkeep, if an opponent controls more land than you may search your library and remove up to 3 basic land cards and put them into your hand. Reshuffle your library afterwards. I know it's been errated to be like a little more cleaner, but here we are.
Yep.
So like what I really want to bring up, and like this is I think one thing that's kind of frustrating, is let's say you want to build a really good white deck, right?
Sure.
That's not white-green.
Okay.
Right?
Yep.
You're following me, right?
Yep.
Like white that doesn't have green in it.
I'm picking up your scent.
Yeah, I like it.
Oh, that was weird.
You're picking up your.
It's like I'm hunting you.
I got your scent. It's Wolverine. We just got Wolverine here. So I think like land tax obviously is really good, right? As is Smothering Tithe. But like what's frustrating is, let's say you like, if you're building a really good mono white deck and you're like, I actually want this deck to function, you're out $50.
Yep.
Right? Just for 2 cards. I'm sure in your mono white Birds of Prey deck, you probably have both of these as well, right?
Yep.
Yes, exactly. So like, I think this shows to the point of like where white has been struggling so much, right? And granted, land tax is a card that got printed a gazillion years ago, and I think it's had 1 reprint. And Smothering Tithe just got printed, so like hopefully we'll be able to see a little bit more of these. But I just wish like the prices of these 2 cards reflect how good they are in this one color.
Yeah.
Right. And I think that I just wish that there was more cards that did stuff that was something close, anything close to this besides Gift of Estates or Tithe that like can do this. So I'm also wondering.
And I think to your point, imagine if land tax had a green counterpart. It would be worth like 20 cents, 30 cents tops. Black, maybe it's $3-4 because black has a lot of ways to generate a lot of mana. I think red, it would still probably be a $30-40 card. Blue, maybe. I don't know if blue really cares that much.
No, it's probably not.
I think that goes to show that if we're saying red would also probably be a $39 card, but green would be 20 cents, that just shows you the gap. And I get it, each color has their own strengths and each has their own weakness, but a weakness shouldn't be so glaring that it's something as simple as if an opponent is ahead of you in land, you get to go get 3 basics and put them to hand. Not even 3 lands. Basics.
I completely agree. And again, like the best white ramp spell is really just the illusion of ramp. Yep. Right? And I think a good point of that is like Curse of Opulence. Before it got reprinted, it was like a $5 or $10 card for a situational curse that was an uncommon, right? So I know like they're just kind of whatever picks, but I really think that they do a lot in this deck, as they would in most decks.
Sure. Well, I think you have one more.
I got one more.
So what is your last one?
So we'll get into this one later, so I don't want to get too far into it. Okay. I want to talk about our boy, the new hotness, Teferi the Time Raveler.
Oh, yeah.
So hot off the presses of me getting a foily one, which I should just go and sell immediately. Teferi Time Raveler is a colorless blue-white for a legendary Planeswalker Teferi. It's rare. Comes in with 4 loyalty counters. Each opponent can cast spells at only time they can cast a sorcery. Not even we're gonna gloss right over that because we will get to that at a later point. +1 until your next turn. You may cast sorcery spells as though they had flash. -3, return up to a 1 target artifact, creature, or enchantment to its owner's hand. Draw a card. When I was first reading that, I was like, wait, is that from the graveyard?
Oh God, no.
I was like, you actually do have recursion. So there are a lot of sorceries in this deck that do like big flashy things, right? And kind of can upset the balance and that sort of thing.
But there's only 4.
Oh, there's
in
only
the
4?
entire deck.
Okay.
I only have 4 sorceries in the entire deck.
So you're playing this explicitly for the thing we'll discuss in 10 to 15, perhaps 4 hours.
Yes, exactly.
Okay, cool. So like mostly I just want to talk about where it's I think, again, this goes to show you how insanely busted this card is, where this isn't even, it's like a sort of piece of the puzzle in this deck that still has two great abilities on it.
Yeah.
Right, it's a removal and a grain to some extent, right? Like with the draw card, and again, it slows down your opponents, right? So if you are playing a Spellslinger deck, now you're forcing them to play on your turns, right? So they can't do any sort of chicanery, and just slows everything down. The fact that it's $17 for a rare still.
Well, it gets played in Standard, it gets played in CEDH, and even though my deck only runs 4 sorceries, here's the thing. If I plop him down and I +1 it, now my opponents have to say, God, what does he have in his hand? Because you don't know exactly what I have in my deck.
Right.
You know, it's not like you have a deck list in front of you. So it could be a myriad of so many different things. And I think the cool thing about Teferi is we always talk about how like Cyclonic Rift is super busted because it's instant speed, blah, blah, blah. Teferi, with his +1, allows you to play all the bad Cyclonic Rifts that are at sorcery speed at instant speed. Right. So you could almost like slot those into a deck to where instead of getting a $30 Cyclonic Rift, right, $30, you get a Teferi and like 10 other copies of Cyclonic Rift. So it's a great card. I like it. I think I ended up just pulling one. I don't even think I bought one for it. Because I really don't actively look to buy cards for this deck because I don't ever play this deck. But I'm hoping by the end of this we'll be able to take out some stuff and make it a little bit more fun. But you're right, man. Teferi does have a cool interaction later in the episode.
We'll get to it.
All right, well, that's going to wrap up the Great Bill. Now we're going to head over to the Board State and Hot Profile. And Big Tuck, I'm going to make you keep talking. What's your first one?
We are. All right, so this is a card that had this bizarro price spike because of one card that just got printed. And I like that you kept it in here. And again, it's a creature, which I also like quite a bit. So we are talking about one of the better kitty cats out there, Alms Collector.
Yep.
3 colorless and a white, for a rare creature cat cleric, it's a 3/4 with flash. If an opponent would draw 2 or more cards, instead you and that player each draw a card. So again,
literally talked about that on that 40 Life and a Dash where I lost to it.
Oh, you did? Oh, yeah, that's right, of course. So
it made me draw out my deck.
With the Sphinxes, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So again, like, it's nice because I like this card because it's innocuous enough where it's never gonna get targeted, right? Unless you're playing like against a Nekuzar or someone who's like your Xeris deck. This card hurts that pretty bad. Yeah. But again, those are like fringe cases, and it's like that kind of stacks that is kind of.
You could deal with it.
Fair, right? Where it's like, okay, similar in scope to Lavinia herself, of that really is just trying to slow the game down a little bit, right? Yeah. That's really what this card is to me. It's a slow the game down. It's a rattlesnake, which is cool, right? So if someone's about to draw, someone Wheels of Fortune, and you're like, I don't think so, right? Yeah. Or, Whispering Madness. There's a lot
of... Oh my gosh, Wheel of Fortune would be so good because you would, in theory, draw 10, and each of your opponents would only draw 1.
Right. So it's pretty good. And there is a fair amount of like windmill, Anji, discard draw, that sort of decks. Like that's not like a super popular tribe, but they exist, right? They're out there. Yeah. And this is like a very fair way to do it. I do think it's funny that this card just spiked because it just happens to be a cat. Yeah. And now they're like, all right, there's 10 good cat cards that have been printed for this cat and dog deck that people are going bananas for. So again, I'm trying to focus in on like the creature sub theme a little bit more. Sure. That's what's like really interesting to me, and it fits the theme of the deck.
Cool. Well, my first one is, I'm surprised at how expensive some of these cards are in the deck. I don't remember paying this much for this deck. I feel like I paid like $300 to make it, not counting the Crypt and the Force and Ristic. But I want to talk about Overburden.
Oh, yeah, sure.
So, colorless blue enchantment, and it says whenever a player puts a creature card into play, that player returns a land he or she controls to its owner's hand. I only play 16 creatures in the deck, including my commander. So even though I do have these interesting creatures from what Big Tuck has alluded to, my deck's not dependent on them. But you take Squee McGee, for example, or MTG Lord of Leaves with their Reese decks. Sure, you want to populate and produce like 15 tokens? Well, you're going to have no lands.
I do have a slight errata for this. It has been errata to say whenever a player puts a non-token creature onto the battlefield, that player returns a land.
Well, it's still all right.
It says creature card, which is stupid, but...
Well, it's I'm less excited now. Yeah, I guess it does slow people down to an extent, but I feel like this card now I should probably just cut and sell because If it doesn't do
$10
token,
is a lot for this, but like this is one of the more frustrating ones for me because it targets lands. But again, this also gives there are a fair amount of cards in the deck, and I think I'll get to one in the Yeast or maybe the Spice where it really is like kind of a modular card for the opponent, right?
Sure.
It's like, okay, do I really need to put down this creature right now, or do I need this land, right? And I like that idea of like kind of the ebb and flow of how this deck can work, which again, like that's like, I like that part of it a lot, right? Like it's kind of like control. There's a fly.
You okay? So what I was going to say is I think what you're trying to say is the deck, I don't know what the ratio would be, but let's just say it's split down 50-50. 50% of the deck is my stacks is forcing you to do X. The other 50% is, hey, there is this effect.
Right.
You may choose whether or not you go into the effect. Would you like to do so?
There's a consequence for it, right?
Yeah.
It's like a dark deal, if you will.
Yeah, it's very much like Sheldon Minery's like, why'd you do this or why'd you hurt yourself deck.
Yeah.
That deck was very much like, hey, there's this thing. Are you sure you want to do it? Because you're going to get punished for it. You're going to get a little slap on the hand.
A little slap and a pickle. So yeah, no.
Slap and tickle. Oh, God. All right. Well, what is your next hop?
That is a great question. So I'm continuing on the creature train with one that I like a lot. We want to talk about, and actually coincidentally, it's a very good pairing with my last one, which I didn't even intend to do. Spirit of the Labyrinth.
Yep.
So a colorless and a white for a 3/1, shockingly, enchantment creature spirit. Each player can't draw more than one card each turn. Students at the Dacacia Academy learn that being sent to study with her is a lesson in itself. Ooh, that's a good one. Coming to an action forward quote near you. So again, I like this card for a lot of reasons. One, it's a creature, so if you want to get rid of it, you can. Dice lightning.
It's an enchantment, so it can also get rid of.
Absolutely. And it also, I also like how there are a fair amount of cards, even the last one, Overburden, that is symmetrical for the table, right?
Sure.
So even you can't draw more than one card yourself, right? And that's why that's again why I like about it. And it's an interesting hate beer, and I've that 9% is catching up real quick. And I think it's funny because I've seen this the deck I've seen this the most recommended for, if I remember correctly, is Queen Marchesa, which to me makes zero sense because it's like you can't draw a card off the Monarch. So what are we doing here, right? Like there's the Queen Marchesa.
Oh yeah, that's
Queen Marchesa
terrible.
plays this like weird stacks area, so I guess you just sack it.
Well, maybe it's supposed to be because you're not supposed to be the Monarch. Your opponents are supposed to be the Monarchs, and so you get the assassins each turn.
Sure. Yeah, so but also like kind of weird, right? Like I have to jump through these things and those colors. So again, like this is like the kind of card I like seeing. You don't really see it that much, and I like how again it kind of like sets the tone of the game for everyone, right? Like that slow down. You're not brainstorming. You're not doing all that crazy stuff, right?
Sure. Yeah. And I have a few ways to draw cards in the deck, but pretty much, we kind of talked about it. It's a pass, go, and then counter spell.
Right.
So being able to slow down, because those are the decks that I'm going to lose to, are the ones that are either going to ramp really, really quick, or just draw. Okay, I'm going to draw 10 cards, and it's just like, well, crap. I can only do so much.
And it plays very nice with your dig through time, which actually doesn't draw you cards.
There you go.
So there you have it.
Well, my next one is a card that punishes. Once again, it's your choice. You don't have to do it. But if you want to get rid of my pieces, you're going to have to take a little bit of pain with it. So we're talking about a very underrated card, in my opinion. It is still very expensive, though. Karmic Justice.
Yes.
2 colorless white enchantment. Whenever a spell or ability, which I think the ability piece is huge, an opponent controls, destroys a non-creature permanent I control, you may destroy a target permanent that opponent controls.
Yeah.
So just count for the deck. I do have 31, and then if you count my lands, non-creature permanents in the deck. So, you didn't like the Spirit of the Labyrinth. I guess technically, even though it's an enchantment, it's also still a creature. We could go with Karmic Justice itself, Overburden. You want to get rid of the things so that way you can do this stuff. Well, I'm going to start blowing up your permanents, which I think is huge. I think if it said spell or ability and opponent controls stores a non-creature, then you have to destroy an equal permanent type that they control. I think that would be significantly worse. But the fact that you could do it to any permanent that opponent controls is just backbreaking. And I've tried to actually make this work in other decks. Hasn't really worked out that well, but
I think it works. I think it's kind of one of those things that we've talked about too, where it's like you don't. And my advice against playing against this card, which I think people kind of figure out with it too, it's kind of like the mystical tutor thing or the tutor, where you're like, you don't counter the tutor, you counter what he's going to get with it. Right?
Yeah.
And it's kind of the same thing with this, where I think like people will realize that, oh yeah, this is backbreaking. If I do some sort of board wipe or, destroy our artifacts and enchantments. So I think this is going to be something that what will probably happen when you play this card most times is like you'll plop it down, next turn someone will destroy it, you blow up one of their things, and then Dig Through Time eats it 2 turns after that.
Yep.
So, but again, but I like that too, because again, it's a modular thing, right?
Sure.
How much do you want that gone? How much? And to your point as well, this deck kind of takes its time, right? It's taking a nice long stroll through the multiverse. So this is another one where you're like, I'll deal with that later. I got better things to do, and then you lose all your lands and just start crying. You have to go and give yourself a talking to out by the tree in the back of Mr. Combo's house.
Well, what is your last hop? I assume you're staying on the creature train.
I am not, actually. I just want to... So there is one card in here, which is hysterical, and I commend you very much for putting it in here. We are talking a premier counterspell in white, Mana Tithe.
Yeah.
You're a psyche. You're a crazy person. I love it. So Mana Tithe is a great counterspell if you're playing mono white or one of those colors. For 1 white, it is a 4-spike instant that comes in about $1. Counter target spell unless its opponent controller plays one. Yeah. When I first saw this, I thought, okay, Mr. Combo has lost his mind, or he didn't have literally the card counterspell to put in this deck. But then I was thinking, okay, what if he intentionally put this in here to be a real goofballs? And on top of that, I realized that a lot of ways this is going to be a counterspell because someone's going to have to pay all their mana with your grand arbiters of the world and whatnot. So you're like, okay, I'll just pay 1 white and just counter it, and you have no mana left to do anything.
Well, and then a lot of times what I'll end up doing is, and I've actually done this to people before with Mana Tithe and had it work, because I'll have been using my blue counterspell magic throughout the game, and then it'll come later in the game, they're going to cast some big villainous wealth, all their Mana Tithe. Aww.
Right. Or even better, they do this thing where like, okay, looking around, like he's tapped out. Wait, he's got a white open? Like, here we go.
Yeah. Here we go, expropriate. Yeah. I'm good.
Right. Exactly. So I do like, it's a very cute card. It's one that's not played enough, in my opinion, right? I think this goes into a lot of white decks just to have that flexibility. The fact it's one, there are gonna be times where this is a dead draw.
For me, it should be played, I think it only should be played in competitive environments, because those are the ones where you're trying to maximize your mana
fast as
freaking possible.
And you're trying to find like the perfect line of like, okay,
correct,
A to B to C with this exact
resources.
That's
where Mana Tithe really shines. Mm-hmm. Outside of that, I guess throw it in your stacks deck if you just want to be weird. That's about it. So that's a good pick though.
I agree. It's awesome.
My last one is actually a new card that just came out. Literally saw this get previewed. Said, you know what's good? There is a kind of workaround in some of my Yeast cards with commanders.
Right.
This shuts that off.
Oh yeah.
Let's talk about Drina, magistrate. Basically, just I hate commanders. Creature.
Yeah. Right.
It's a colorless white. It's sitting at $1.88, and that's full art promo. Creature, human, wizard. And it says, your opponents can't cast spells from anywhere other than their hands. Need I say more?
No. And I remember when this card first came out, people were losing their minds. It was bedlam, right? And the price, this is going to be a $10, $20 card. And literally a week later, people were like, this is a buy a box promo? How dare you? Like, people have this crazy, like, weird love-hate relationship with this card. And again, to your point, backbreaking, yes. When you have no mana to do anything about it, also yes. It's also a 1/3 creature with no protection or anything, right?
Yep.
So again, like that's what's so frustrating going through this and looking at these cards.
Because you really wanted to hate on it, didn't you?
And I still do for specific reasons. But like you look at, and we didn't get to them. Like I think I made a joke where it's like, why don't you just make this Magus tribal? And you sort of did, which I respect. But like that's why I like seeing this list. And maybe it's because every time we played it, you've just been killed or like played one super oppressive card and everyone ganged up on you. Which again is totally fine in my opinion in the right play. However, the fact that you do have these like kind of like creatures that have these like crazy abilities that if this was an enchantment, horrible, right? Like there's one that's like Norn's Annex where Nevermore, where it's like colorless white. You just name a card and they can't cast it right, which is super frustrating for people.
Sure.
Especially if they're playing like red. Where again, but this is like the fair way of doing it, right? Mm-hmm. And on top of that, you're playing with at least 3 other people. Why not?
And on top of that, Suck It Duff. This gets rid of Conspicuous Snoop. Can't cast the goblins off the top. I think that's Snoop, isn't it?
Yeah, the new one. Yeah, you're right. Yeah. So I like it. And like, obviously when you look at this at first, you're like, okay, this is Hose's Commanders. Okay. Graveyard decks. Some Cascade decks.
Yeah.
Right? Top of library manipulation. There's a lot of things that this actually does bad with.
Yeah. I mean, a Maelstrom Wanderer deck, you're just done.
Yep. Totally agree. So again, it's like we have all these great picks, but this deck still frustrates me to no end.
Well, let's end the frustration and head over to the exciting area, and let's head over to Yeast. I'll start this off with a card that can get real cute with another Yeast card that I won't mention. Actually, you know what? I'm going to do that one last, just in case you do talk about the other card. I want to make sure I can talk about them together. So I'm going to start off with Ward of Bones.
Okay, sure. Yeah.
Ward of Bones, you would kind of think this would be a hop card because this is something that controls your opponents, but the way I look at it, this is actually more of a Yeast, because if I can land this, I'm pretty close to winning the game. Mm-hmm. So 6 colorless artifact sitting at $11 seems to be the average money cost of every card in this deck. Each opponent who controls more creatures than you can't play creature cards. The same is true for artifacts, enchantments, and lands. So a lot of times I'll get this out and I'll have a lot of those hops cards to where, you're overburdened. Well, if you play a creature, you got to bounce a land. And I'm just further taxing you. I don't want you moving forward, but the fact that this is symmetrical for all of my opponents, for all of their stuff, I've played this, and people will get to their turn and they'll forget and do an enchantment. I'm like, oh, sorry, you already have 2 out, and I only have 2. And they're just like, fudge, and then they'll have to sit there and count. And then I'll have ways that they won't be able to target it, or it's I got the Karmic Justice out.
Sure.
Talked about it. Do you want to target Ward of Bones, or do you want to target Karmic Justice? And it's like you can't do anything because of Ward of Bones. Right. But then if you do something to Ward of Bones, Karmic Justice is going to hurt you. But yeah, no, Ward of Bones, I think it's a great card. Right. It could actually probably be played in more decks. And by that, I mean like my Vin Diesel deck.
I was just going to say that.
Yeah, totally. It probably wants this card really bad. This would also probably be great in Atraxa Super Friends. Mm-hmm. I'm only playing 1 creature in that anyways. There's no Planeswalker restriction. Right. So I'm going to kind of slow you guys down and kind of go crazy. So I think Ward of Bones, it's one of those cards that if it lands, it's not going to next turn you actually win the game, but it's literally going to slow your opponents down to a snail pace. They better hope they already have on the board what they need, or they're just screwed. Mm-hmm. Well,
exactly. It leads right to that concession that you're looking for. So
yeah, that's the best kind of win. What's your first Yeast card?
So there's a dirty 2-card combo with this card, and it's with one of the cards we talked earlier. But I still like this card no matter any way you slice it. So I want to talk about it's a big ol' deep end. And in it, there's a lot of there's like this one little fruit fly flying around. Knowledge Pool, baby.
Yeah, yes. That's a great card.
Okay, so I like this for a multitude of reasons. Knowledge Pool is 6 colorless for an artifact. It's a rare from Mjordran Besiege for $1.15. So Imprint. When it enters the battlefield, each player exiles the top 3 cards of his or her library. So remember that. So that's going to be 12 cards, right?
Yep.
Maybe lands. Sure. Maybe Eldrazi. Sky's the limit. When a player casts a spell from his or her hand, that player exiles it. if the player does, he or she may cast another non-land card exiled with Knowledge Pool without paying that card's mana cost.
Yep.
So, in reality, this card's hysterical because it's just swapping things in and out, right? Which I love.
Yep.
However, where it gets completely busted is with the card we talked about earlier, the Fairy of the Time Raveler. So we glossed over it intentionally. Each opponent can cast spells only anytime they can cast a sorcery. So if you have the Fairy Time Raveler out and also Knowledge Pool out, your opponents cannot cast spells because they have to cast them at instant speed through the Knowledge Pool.
And Drina Magistrate, because you can only cast spells from your hand.
Oh, I didn't even think about that. Oh.
And Lavinia, each opponent casts a spell if no mana was spent to cast it, counter it.
Horrible. I hate this card. No, I
thought you loved it.
I do like it. So what's funny is like the old school pairing was this and like Big Teferi, which costs I think 6 or 5 or something. And they're just
I think you plussed him each time.
No. He's the creature version where it's like you can cast cards as though they have. You can cast spells as though they have flash, I think, and all your opponents can only cast at sorcery speed.
You know what's funny is he actually was in the deck, and I cut him for Drina Magistrate.
Oh, nice. Yeah, because it's funny too, where it's like, hey, this is a well-known combo throughout the EDH world. Let's give you it on a Planeswalker at 3 mana at half the cost. So I like that is like. At some point, this game has to come to an end in this deck, right? And this is one of the ways to do it, so I'm okay with that. But moreover, I just think even just landing this, just for funsies, is incredible.
Sure.
Right? Like, stuff coming in, stuff coming out, you never know. I'm a huge fan of Knowledge Pool. Always have been, always will be.
Yeah, I've definitely had this card in hand and purposely not cast it.
Right.
Because I just had nothing to do with it. Maybe Lavinia at that point costs 8. And it's just like, gosh, I don't have 14 mana to play both and actually do what I want to do. So I don't know. Maybe I do just need to play it and just roll the dice, see what happens.
And that's part of the issue too, where it's like, okay, I'm going to spend my entire turn to cast Knowledge Pool, like, only lands, and then someone puts in like an Eldrazi or a Crater Hoof or something horrible there, and the next person's just like, I
cast swords. I cast swords to plowshare. I'm going to take the Crater Hoof.
Yeah, exactly. So, but I like again, to our earlier point, this is like another perfect modular card for your opponents, right? It always gives them something to do, but it doesn't give them everything to do, and that's why I like it.
Well, my next one is basically Knowledge Pool, but maybe worse. We're talking about Omen Machine.
Oh, yes we are, sir! Yes we are!
So you just got done talking a lot, so why don't you read the border and I'll read the massive block of text.
Like, you've been talking a bunch. Why don't you do the whole thing? All right, so Omen Machine is another 6-drop artifact that's a rare from the Phyrexian block, very close to the other one, that runs in for 81 cents.
Yeah, and so Omen Machine, guys, it says players can't draw cards. Well, symmetrical effect, we're usually fine with that.
Yep.
But here's where all the stuff we just talked about that Knowledge Pool likes, Omen Machine likes as well. At the beginning of each player's draw step, that player exiles the top card of his or her library. If it's a land card, the player puts it onto the battlefield. Otherwise, the player casts it without paying its mana cost if able. So, Lavinia can't cast spells for free. Teferi, you have to cast at sorcery speed, so you can't cast it. So then literally, I think it would actually... it would just sit on top of their library at that point.
Right, they just reveal it, and that's it.
You just reveal it, and then that's the only card they'll reveal for the rest of the game. And then, of course, we talked about Drina Magistrate because it won't be in their hand.
Right.
So they won't be able to cast it there. So the kind of trick with this one and the trick with Knowledge Pool says whenever a player casts a spell from his or her hand, so usually you can cast your commander. You still always have access to your commander because it's not in your hand. Omen Machine, the kind of opposite way of Knowledge Pool, because Knowledge Pool, whenever you cast stuff from your hand, it goes into the pool. Omen Machine, you at least have access to your commander and your hand.
Right.
So if you have some sort of out there, you can try to get out. Knowledge Pool is definitely a little bit more of a lockdown than Omen Machine, because Omen Machine, you know, if you have a grip, you're good.
Right.
But it's still another, you land this and you have one of just those 3 cards. And I'm sure I have others in here. Yeah, pretty much people are just like, okay, I quit.
Yeah, we're good here. But again, this is another fun card that I like because it's super high risk, high reward, right? And some people, if they're playing super high CMC stuff, they'll want this and be like, yeah, I'll take that risk all day. Get a land out of the way, and then I have like my Vizira Menagerie, so I can flip it over and maybe cast a creature off the top of the deck. Right? That's nice. This is something that I would also recommend to you, just like cast it, right? If you have nothing else to do, right? Because it's not, this is less of a lockdown. To your point, if you have knowledge pool, there's a much higher risk of it going wrong for you if you don't have it locked down, right?
Sure.
Whereas this one, it's a much smaller risk and can also potentially take the focus off of you, right?
Yeah, that's fair. Fair point.
And especially if there's someone who's drawing a gazillion cards or you're playing like a Nekazar or something, you could suddenly become the savior of the table, right? And then you're like, oh no, we're going to be here for the next 4 hours.
All right. Well, what is your last Yeast? I'm very curious about this.
It's a very similar effect, which I think is also why I like it so much. So we are talking about the Eye of the Storm.
Yeah.
5 colorless blue, and another reason why I wanted to bring these up is because the only other deck I've ever seen these in is my Chaos deck that we are never going to talk about. Whenever a player casts an instant or sorcery card, remove it from the game, then that player copies each instant or sorcery card removed from the game with Eye of the Storm. For each copy, that player may play the copy without paying its mana cost. It's insane. And again, this is another card that you should just run out as soon as you get it. It falls into the same trap. And actually, ironically, we've talked about like 3 levels of lockdown, right?
Yeah.
So, Knowledge Pool, ultimate lockdown. Omen Machine, a little bit of a lockdown, right? There's still a lot of options. This one, even less of a lockdown. If you're playing against someone who's casting a Spellslinger deck, they're screwed, right? Can't do your ramps.
But a creature heavy deck, they don't care.
Yeah, exactly. So, like, it's weird that with these 3 cards, especially with, like, Decree of Silence, especially with Omen Machine and Eye of the Storm, you can really play these cards as, like, political pieces, too, right? Where you can turn, if you're gonna, because this deck dies to creatures for the most part, right? So you're like, hey, just leave me alone, let me out this. We can stop this Spellslinger guy or this person who's about to exsanguinate for a gazillion or whatever, right?
Sure.
Like, let's just tuck that down here nice and low, and he can't do anything. But you guys can go ahead and do whatever you want. And the next turn you're like, Omen Machine, you guys can't do what you want. Or Knowledge Pool, right? So
no one does what they want.
Yeah, right, exactly. So I do like it. It's like this weird, goofy card. Now, the question I have for you with these, I'm done, right? With these 3, have you ever actually cast any of these?
Yeah. 100%.
Okay, good. And did it ever backfire? Here we are.
Nope. Nope. I actually did Knowledge Pool at Magic Fest KC.
Oh my gosh.
I think it was the first EDH. It was the EDH tournament that we signed up for, and I sat down, and it was my first Magic Fest. I didn't know what to do. I was asking people like, "What's power level?" And they were all like, "Oh, like to play pretty good decks." And I was like, "Oh, I don't know what to do." So I think game 1 I did Joda 1,
sure,
obviously, and then I think game 2 I was like, "Well, I'll do something a little bit less," and I did Lavinia, and I ended up losing, but I think I kept the combo players, there was 2 of them in check for like over an hour. I was just shutting them down, and actually I got some of the stuff out, but then like their commander could come out and kind of do some rigmarole,
right?
Yeah, no. And here's the other thing: if I land any of these cards plus one of the other 3, that's anywhere from 9 to 10 mana. And we always talk about, 9 to 10 mana spells wins the game. Okay.
Right.
Like, you did it. You got the mana. Yeah, right. So no one gets mad at an insurrection win. You shouldn't get mad at these wins either.
No, especially not these ones, because like I run these as win cons in my Chaos deck, right? Because the reason being is it's so ridiculous that you would even be able to get to that point, right? So like I'd be, if we sat down and that's how you won with this one, I would be like, okay, and extend the hand.
Well, this next one is funny enough because I actually got a spell of mine countered with this card with Daname's new cycling deck. We're talking about Decree of Silence.
Right.
So, it does have a cycling cost. 4 colorless, blue. When you cycle Decree of Silence, you may counter target spell.
Just the value. 6 mana.
Just the value.
6 mana counter spell.
So good. But really where its value comes in is 6 colorless, blue enchantment. So it's 8 mana, $30. Woof.
The cycling, dude. The new cycling deck had this go through the roof.
Whenever an opponent plays a spell, counter that spell and put a depletion counter on Decree of Silence. Then if there are 3 or more depletion counters on Decree of Silence, sacrifice it. So, you may ask why this is a Yeast card. Well, a lot of the stuff that I have in Yeast is dependent on another card. None of them just win you the game by itself. So, here's the thing, ladies and gents. You pair Decree of Silence with a card called Solemnity.
Yeah.
Solemnity, 2 colorless white enchantment. Players can't get counters, and counters can't be put on artifacts, creatures, enchantments, or lands. So if you have these 2 things out, infinite counter spells, and there you go. All right, well, I think that's going to wrap up the Yeast package. Now we're going to head over to the spicy one, and like I said, I think this is the spiciest deck we have.
It's one of them.
Which, granted, you could look at some other cards and say they should go in the other areas, but they're symmetrical hurt me too effects. So, Big Tuck, start us off. What is your first spice card?
So I'm going to... This is, again, the perfect card for my build of the deck.
Okay.
All right, so all these things moving around, all these bugs in the backyard, right? And lo and behold, there's this big old boy that used to stay in my backyard named Ulysses, this giant spider, right? What I realized is that he was weaving something for me. There's definitely something for these mosquitoes. And in fact, he was weaving a web of inertia. This card is great.
Oh my god.
That's a long bit, not my best. It just came to me in the bathroom. So here we are. Web of Inertia is 2 colorless and a blue for an enchantment. It's a uncommon out of Judgment. 81 cents. Oh, I know what deck this is in. Sylphids specialize in lose-lose situations. At the beginning of each opponent's combat phase, because I'm not sure if this deck ever goes into the red zone,
correct.
That player may remove a card in his or her graveyard from the game. If that player doesn't, creatures he or she controls can't attack you this turn.
Now, do you know the infinite combo with this?
Oh, there is? I had no idea. No.
Rest in peace.
Oh, gotcha. Okay.
No graveyard. You just never attack me.
You just can't attack anymore. Fine. Which respect and rest in peace also.
But outside of that, it's just like okay.
And but again, it's a modular card, right? Where it's like, hey,
sure.
Do you want to attack? You got to exile that card, right?
But if it's a go wide deck, 1 card from the graveyard, I wish it was a card for each creature they have to exile. That would make it a little bit better.
Agreed. But that's why it's a great spice card too, right?
Yeah, that is why it's a great spice card.
And the best part about that is I'm not even angry about that because Rest in Peace is also it's kind of like what we talked about with Brea, where the Rest in Peace is great in this deck, right? Because as Made mentioned, you couldn't possibly care about your graveyard, but some people really do, right? And if you don't have your Drina Magistrate and stuff out, that helps them a lot, right? And sometimes people are going to be getting, someone does a Scavenger Grounds or something and exiles all people's graveyards just because of one person, which happens a lot, right? Like there's a lot of their graveyards are scary. So it wouldn't be surprised to me that this would just lock down a table even in and of itself, right? Rare that may be. And a lot of times you may like we talked about in the 40 Life in the Dash on Tuesday, or I'm sorry, the What's a Plane Chase, like you're trying to take a big risk filling up your graveyard. Sorry dude, that's gotta go.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of I like the card. It is the perfect spice card because it's very, by itself, it's okay. Yep. It's not like, Knowledge Pool and Omen Machine by themselves or Decree or Eye of the Storm, those by themselves still do very impactful things.
Yes.
You just can't control it.
Right.
Web of Inertia by itself is like, I don't think Squee's really going to care if I have all these other things out. He's like, okay, I have to get rid of even my Crater Hoof because it got counterspelled earlier. Right. Okay, I'll exile it just to kill you and get rid of you because it's the one card.
Or an Evolving Wild, right? Like, again, it still makes them have a choice.
Yeah.
Right? And again, if this is an interesting one too, because if you're doing your pieces right, they shouldn't be able to attack you, or it's going to be difficult for them to attack you from the jump. So again, if they're like, I didn't want to get into Mr. Combo, I want to get into somebody, so I'm going to have to exile something, right? And again, Could be a land, could be, a mana dork, a mana rock, or something like that, right? Like a Mind Stone. But I just like the fact that it does force them to exile something, right?
Yep.
And if you get this down early enough, if you get this down on turn 3, they may not have stuff in their graveyard or ways to get it in there, right?
Yeah, and I mean, and by that point, it's almost kind of like the New God Klothos. Mm-hmm. To where, at the beginning of it, you get to exile a targeted thing, each combat. It's one of those, you get it out early enough, you can kind of hurt the graveyard player. Marin's going to be wanting to get the value creatures in early. Well, you know what? At least with Klothos, you can target it. This one's, hey, you can't attack or do anything.
Right.
So, you know what? If you had an attack trigger or if someone had a curse that gives you a treasure, do you really want to do it? So, it's a fine card. All right, so my next one is another one that happens to everyone. I've actually played this in, I think, almost all the games that I've played this deck, and everyone hates it. I think it's fine, though. It's fair and balanced, as all things should be. We're talking about Mana Breach. So, 2 colorless blue. Whenever it's an enchantment, whenever any player plays a spell, that player returns a land he or she controls to its owner's hand. Just slow down. Slow your roll. But the other reason I like it... Well, the other reason I like it for this deck is because we've talked about it many times. This deck doesn't ramp well.
Yeah. So
this is almost kind of a semi-ramp spell for me. I kept a 2-lander because I went down to 6. I play a land, and I eventually get Mana Breach. I'm still stuck at 2 lands. Okay, I tap 1 to play Soul Ring, bounce the tap land, and play the land again. Kind of hit my land drop. So it's actually helped me out of some jams where I was able to play artifacts, but then I could keep bouncing the lands and playing them untapped to use them for other stuff. But then also the other players, it's kind of like, what is that Staxy artifact that each spell you cast after the first costs 1 more colorless?
Dampening Sphere.
Dampening Sphere. It's kind of like Dampening Sphere. It's like, hey, chill out, calm down.
What's really strange to me, and the more we've talked about this, and then I can't believe I'm saying this, there are a shockingly high amount of parallels between this and your Vin Diesel deck. It's very strange. Like, when you really boil it down, because you're just trying to slow everyone else down, because you're only going to be able to do like 1 or 2 things a turn. So it's funny where it's like, Dampening Sphere probably wouldn't be horrible in this either, right?
Yeah.
But it's like, it's kind of the same thing. So this one, I think this also is, if you really look at it on paper, right? It's a 3-drop that does nothing when it enters the battlefield, has no protection, and it really doesn't do anything, right?
Well, think of it. It's kind of like Karmic Justice, to where if they play the removal spell, they'll have to bounce a land.
Right.
So it's like you have a little bit of a drawback to get rid of it, but that's your choice. You don't have to.
I agree with you, and I think like in that sense, it is frustrating because it kind of slows you down. But at the same point, you could just say it's everyone, including you. So I have an enchantment removal in my hand, but I don't really have that much else. So like I'm kind of okay just playing a land and passing and waiting, right?
Yep.
So, and then because there's going to be someone who's going to be like, I need to poop out as much as I can this turn, or else the world's going to end, right? And then like that person's going to take care of it, and you're just like, phew.
Yeah, I'm going to save it for the actual enchantments that matter.
Right, exactly.
All right, guys. Well, that's going to wrap up the spice package, and now we're going to head over to the bottle capping. And as a recap, these are going to be big tucks, our guests and I's, cuts, and adds to the deck that are going to be under $5, under 50, and a personal recommendation with no budget. It just can't be a mana-only land. So, big tuck, I'm going to make you so proud. So proud.
I'm very excited.
I'm cutting Armageddon.
I'm also cutting Armageddon, and I thought you were gonna.
I figured,
and I thought you were gonna yell at me for it. So I was like, I'm gonna try. I'm only cutting. So, little peer back behind the curtains. Mr. Combo very kindly, quote unquote, reminded me that we're trying to make this deck not the antithesis of what I hate, but trying to find cards that work for it. So I will admit that actually was nice to be quote unquote kindly reminded of, because it didn't make this difficult. So I am also going to be cutting Armageddon. Yeah,
and so Armageddon, guys, if you're not familiar, which hopefully you're not, because it's a terrible card.
Hopefully you've never seen this card before.
It's 3 colorless white. It's a sorcery, and it just says to destroy all lands. Ugh. The only reason it's in the deck, and it's just like, it's a stacks card, I guess. So sure, but there's literally no synergy. There's nothing creative. You know, it's not like Knowledge Pool where I got these creative things where I can maybe make it a little bit broken, or same thing with Web of Inertia. It's just...
I mean, you can delve it.
It is. Sure.
But I will say the funny story, the only time I've ever seen you actually cast this, I think, was we were all like beating down on you, and you're like, okay, fine, I'm going to cast Armageddon. And then actually,
Concede.
I ended up winning that game from some.
Yeah, I think I casted it and then I conceded. Because you guys were literally just picking on me and I wasn't doing anything at that point.
True.
So,
okay.
Okay, so I'm going to cut it for a win con. I need ways to win the game. And I'm on a weird trance of adding this card to decks because I just added it to my Go deck.
I think I know what you're doing. Is it?
We're talking about an approach.
Yeah, this was kind of on my list-ish, but I decided to save it for a different time.
Yeah, so Approach of the Second Sun, 6 colorless white. Sorcery, if an approach was cast from my hand, and I've cast another spell named Approach this game, you win the game. Otherwise, put Approach of the Second Sun into its owner's library, 7th from the top, and you gain 7 life. So here's the funny thing. So I do need a way to win the game, and this will effectively win it if I can do it. But if it gets exiled with Eye of the Storm or Knowledge Pool or Omen Machine, I can't win with it.
It's the
because it's from the hand.
What's that? It's that Sabine. The Sabine. We could call this like the Sabine dilemma, right? Where you can't copy it and just win right away.
Yep. And so if I actually if I have any of these other pieces out, I just immediately have to know, okay, I can cast Approach a whole bunch of times, but I'm just going to keep gaining 7 life. That's it. But outside of that, because I'm going to assume that my opponent's going to do what they can to get out of these other lock pieces.
Right.
So at least, hopefully you've wasted enough stuff at that point, or maybe I can cast an Approach on turn 5 or 6. And it's like, oh, well, we got to be aware of that. But then I'm going to be, like, I literally, when I did it with my Go deck, I ended up shuffling it away.
Yeah.
And hopefully you'll forget about it. And you'll have to deal with this other stuff. And then I'll just win out of nowhere.
Right.
You need ways to win the game. And at least this way is a funny way to win.
I also have a funny way to win, which plays almost the exact same way. So I'm also going to cut Armageddon for reasons as stated above, below, and pretty much why I play Magic. So I'm going to cut it for a thing that will bring you very home, Mr. Squee, because for those who don't know, Squee and I were in a rock band in high school, and during one time we brought in, our lead singer couldn't come, so we brought in a violist and a trombonist, Mr. Lane, who is not a friend of the show, decidedly not, and we called ourselves the Filibusters, and it was a huge hit in my parents' backyard when they all got hammered on wine. So we are also going to be doing a little bit of filibustering with Azor's Electors.
I looked at this card.
Yeah, okay. I think it's a winner. I think it's a huge winner. Elector. I don't know. At the beginning of your upkeep, put a filibuster counter on this card. Then if you have 5 or more filibuster counters on it, you win the game. Whenever a source deals damage to you, remove a filibuster counter from Azor's Eloctors. I don't know. It's hard. So, okay, this is what I was thinking, right? Where it's like...
Elocateurs.
Oh, nailed it. Elocateurs. I thought you were the illiterate one.
I am.
I'm just a moron, I guess. Been doing too many workflows. So anyway, the way I look at this is that you do say that you want your opponents to concede, right? Or that's a way that you can win, right?
Yes.
Which is like kind of weird-ish, but one of the things I like about, which is like, you know, do each their own, even if it's wrong, JK. So what I like about this is like, this is a card that you can then play and be like, this game has a definitive end to it, right? So it's a risk. It's a risk. It's a crazy risk, right?
And it's kind of a non-bow with Solemnity.
Oh, very true. Very true on that. But again, you have no way to tutor up Solemnity, right? So getting that rolling, getting all these trains rolling that you have can be potentially a hit or miss, right? But what can happen in this game, and we didn't touch into it very much, is like the static orbs and winter orbs of the world that you have in here, those sort of things where they like lock down the board where you can't get attacked, people aren't untapping, but you still can in some way or fashion. Getting this down and like slowly ticking it up, right? It kind of draws away from, this could potentially draw away from people destroying your other stuff, right? They're like, okay, he's going to win in 5 turns while you're drawing cards, playing more stacks piece, right? Playing your Teferi, and they're like, okay, well, no, we need to deal with this first, Teferi, whatever, right? We'll get to it. They spend all the resources. This gets up to 3, and we all know how the players that we play with are. It's Panic Town. As soon as they see something that says win the game or otherwise, it's chaos, right? So this gets destroyed. they bounce a land to their hand, they board wipe, whatever the case may be. They're like, okay, great, knowledge pool, game's over, right? So that's how I kind of look at it. Like, it seems like a low risk. It's and the fact it's 5, the fact it is a creature that you can block.
Here's the thing: I could pick one up for a quarter. I'd be happy to get one and just try it out. I just, the one thing I worry about it, to be frank, is we already talked about how creatures, that's how I'm going to die, is creatures are going to be hitting me.
Yeah, fair point.
This is going to encourage people to hit me more.
You, yeah.
And I don't know if I need more ways for people to find reasons to want to hit me.
All right,
I get hit enough.
Yes, fair point.
All right. Well, so for my under 50, I'm going to cut Mana Vortex.
Okay.
So it's fine, but it feels real bad. So, Mana Vortex, colorless blue enchantment. When you cast Mana Vortex, you may sack a land. If you don't, counter Mana Vortex. At the beginning of each player's upkeep, that player sacrifices a land. When there are no lands on the battlefield, sacrifice Mana Vortex.
Yeah, it feels real bad.
Yeah, well, especially since I have to go down a land as soon as it comes out. Right. I think if I didn't have to immediately go down a land, I'd maybe consider still leaving it in there. But I've had games where I've had Mana Breach and Mana Vortex out, and it's just like, you can't keep up.
Yeah.
It almost hurts me more than my opponents, because my opponents may be in green and they can ramp a little bit quicker, or maybe they're the red artifact deck so they can get some of their artifact stuff back from the graveyard. And I'm like, I'm an Azorious. I play by the rules, and I don't cheat.
That's a great point, especially because it, like, some people, I'm sure there's some decks that exist there, like, again, my red to ready deck. All right, I have 4 mana rocks on board. Destroy, like, go ahead, right? Like, I'm just going to hang out here and keep doing what I'm doing.
But I wanted to add a card that I actually have a copy of. It's sitting in Davis's Goreclaw deck that I made. Okay. It's another win the game card. Costs 13 to play. We're talking Emrakul, the Promised End.
Okay.
So this is 13 colorless. Hear me out. Legendary creature Eldrazi. It's a 13/13. It costs 1 less to cast for each card type among cards in my graveyard. I'm going to be casting stuff at instant speed, so I'm going to have instants in there. People are going to be getting rid of my stacks creatures and be getting rid of my stacks artifacts. My stacks. Board, yeah, so it's going to probably cost 9, most likely, to get out.
Right.
But it still fits the theme of the deck, because when I cast it, I gain control of target opponent during their next turn, and after that, they take an extra turn. And it does have flying, trample, and protection from instants if it needed anything else.
Right.
So it would be nice to have a big beater that has protection from swords to plowshares, and the best removal card ever, Murder.
Let's be honest here. It's not protection from Murder.
Yeah, and so I think it fits the deck perfect. And we talked about it in the beginning. My deck's only a 3 mana cost, or a 3 CMC average. So me going from a 3 to a 13, even though it won't really be 13, and going from a 4 to a 7, I'm maybe going up to what, a 3/1,
right?
3/1/5. I'm probably still fine.
And to your point, you do need ways potentially to deal damage in this deck, right?
Yes.
Yeah, I know that's like blasphemy to even bring up here, but that will need to happen at some point when you're playing it. So yeah, I just the only thing I thought about it to approach the Second Son too. It concerns me a little bit that your mana curve is so low intentionally, so you can run out these enchantments and then just kind of hang back, and you always have kind of something to play into it. So even if it is 9 mana and, you know, whatever else that you need, I'm still worried that this is going to be like, this could potentially be like a dead drop at some point. But that's
early game.
Yes, and to your point, where it's like people are blowing up your stuff, right? And if you can make it to 9 mana when you have your signets, your other things, this is going to do a lot of work. So it's a little bit of a crazy one. I'll give you that.
But I think if you look at it though, like the first 2 cuts I've done is get rid of Armageddon and get rid of Mana Vortex, or the things that hoses my own land base.
Fair point. Yeah.
So I think the reason that my curve is so low and I needed it that way is because I was hurting my own lands as well. I need stuff that hurts lands that's not just so I breathe, I sacrifice a land. Your upkeep happens, you get rid of a land. I need things so like, oh, you play a creature, you bounce a land. You know, you play a spell, you bounce a land. Those things I can kind of play around. But if it's just naturally on my turn, or at a spite, I'm an Armageddon, it's just like, well, I guess I'm not going to play anything for the rest of the game.
Right.
So,
all right, yeah, fair enough.
What's your 50 cut and add.
This is another cheap one. So I'm actually shocked that you don't have any of these effects in here. And there's like a bunch of cards that could fit into this, but I have two that in particular. So like I said, I'm going to cut Decree of Silence. I get it works with Solemnity. And honestly, if you cut Decree of Silence, you're probably going to cut Solemnity too, right?
Probably going to have to, because it doesn't do anything. Well, counters do matter, because that can stop buffing creatures, that can stop infect.
Fair point.
So there are fringe. Yeah. That would be kind of going back to our Action 4 news from last week with Cat Popcast Ryan, to where if I kept Solemnity in there, it's a meta pick, not because it's just generically good for the deck.
Agreed. So fair point with that. So, but as I mentioned earlier, Decree of Silence really plays nice with that one, right? Again, it's very high mana, which again isn't a problem in this deck, but like getting to that mana is going to be tough. And if the cycling was like 4 for a counterspell, it would make a little more sense. So I'm going to cut it for a card we've talked about previously. And there's a lot of things that do this, but I'm going to cut it for either Kismet or Frozen and Aether, which both do the same thing. One of them's in white, one of them's in blue. So I'll just go with Kismet because I'm more familiar with it. So 3 colorless and a white. Artifacts, creatures, and lands your opponent's control enter the battlefield tapped, right?
Such a good card.
It's bonkers. And I think the same thing of like Authority of the Consuls there's a lot of cards that do this enter tap stuff, right? And you do have a small package of things where it's like you can only untap X, Y, and Z. You can only untap 1 or 2, those sort of things. Which again, like doesn't really hurt you because you're just doing it kind of like you're running with the flow, right? You're just hanging out, just doing your thing, going there. Whereas getting stuff tapped, slowing things down, even if they do blow up your smaller enchantments, this is something that's going to last the entire game, right? And I think a real critical point of this too is like the lands part, right? So Lavinia does a pretty good job of locking down lands herself to some extent, right? Like ramp and that sort of thing. But if Lavinia gets destroyed or out, it would be good to stop big stompy creatures, to stop the Crater Hoofs, to stop the Adventures of Zendikars, those sort of things, right? You die to creatures a lot. And by the time you get one of these 2 cards down, that's when people who are playing creatures decks are going to start getting into their big stuff, right? Getting into their Voltron packages, getting that sort of thing. So that's a little overcosted, but I think having at least one of these things in here that taps down something on end of the battlefield, and you have one with Talia, which is a great card as we've talked about.
Yeah.
So I think
I think you're onto something. I like that it does the lands as well. I think Authority of the Consuls might be better because I think I gain a life.
Yeah, but it's only creatures, right?
Creatures. Yeah. So, that might be worth looking into, trying to get a couple more of those things in there, because you are right. If someone has a hasty board and they're going wide, I could just die.
Yeah.
The Crater Hoofs of the world, things like that. No, I like that. Kismet, man, 55 cents.
It's so good.
It's so good.
So like that. So again, like I just chose that because it's a card that I don't think enough people play. Right?
No, they clearly don't.
And if you look at Authority of the Consuls, $3 or whatever. So either way, just some of these cards where when something that your opponent does that comes into play tapped.
Sure. So could you say that Kismet's going to be your Altar of the Brood?
I'm actually, all right. I'm on board with that. But
all right, there we go.
And we're going to play into that meme in just a second. But okay, so what's your personal pick? I know you may mention that you're about to drop potentially some cash.
Not in real life, because I will never buy this card. Okay. But I'm going to cut Swiftfoot Boots.
Yeah, sure.
So, Swiftfoot Boots, guys, 2 colorless artifact equipment. Equipped creature has hexproof and haste, equipped for 1. I do have Lightning Greaves in here, and I think Greaves is fine because I can get Lavinia and immediately swing it over, no matter what she costs at the time.
I'm also cutting this.
Swiftfoot?
For the same reasons.
Yeah.
You don't need your commander. Like, this deck functions without her.
Well, I do need my commander. It's just she gets picked on so much that there are times where I will pay 6, play her, and I have no mana left over. Right. Swiftfoot does nothing because now you have a rotation to get rid of her. Well, at least Lightning Greaves, I can
slap right back on,
slap it on for free. So I'm going to cut this for a piece of Magic history.
Oh, gasp.
We're talking about good old Time Twister. Okay. So Time Twister coming in at a cool $2,800 to $3,800. 2 colorless blue sorcery. Each player shuffles their hand, graveyard into their library, then draw 7 cards, and then put Time Twister into its owner's graveyard. So the reason I think this would be a great card for this deck is we talked a lot about how I'm going to be counterspelling, you're going to be removing my stuff.
Right.
It's going to really suck. Well, how about if it's late enough in the game, it's like, let's just start over from scratch. Let's just start back to zero. I want to get all that stuff back in my library, my force of wills, things to that nature. But then also, we did talk about some little hate-berry things, like what if I did Time Twister and Omen Machines out? Players can't draw cards. So we just get rid of everything, and now you're just top decking for the rest of the game. That one thing that you get.
Now,
and if I have Lavinia out, you're just screwed. I win the game.
To be fair, you can get a square gold bordered version of this for $500 if you're willing to invest.
No, thank you. Besides the fact that it goes against the grain of me not owning a real copy, I think this is definitely one of those to where if I saw it at a Magic Fest,
right,
damaged, beat to hell for like $1,000, and I just had a bunch of trade stuff I was looking maybe I was looking to get another set of Aber Duels. That could be something like, you know what? I'd like to own one, even if it's in rough condition. I don't need another set of duels or a couple Underground Seas. Let me try to get this Time Twister.
Sure.
But and there is Echo of Eons. So for anyone out there, I could just put Echo of Eons, essentially the same thing. But I get to actually do it twice, which is kind of cool. But yeah, that's what do you think? I've been talking. I'm kind of getting aroused. It's exciting.
I mean, it's a great one. Like we said, the Spirit of the Labyrinth shuts us down right away as well. So I agree with you, right? Like, I think you can do, like, if you didn't want to spend $1,000, you could also just do Windfall and do some similar of it, but you don't get your own stuff back. So I mean, if you're gonna put, if you already have like a bunch of other reserved cards in here that are nuts, like that Land Equilibrium that we didn't even talk about. That's like $100. That's a reserved card as well. So it would be an interesting one to put into it. You look confused.
I don't have Equilibrium in here.
Land Equilibrium.
Oh, Land Equilibrium. Yes. That's $100.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, man.
Reserve list, baby.
Crazy.
Going up. So, and again, this is also something where if you do keep that, if you have to go down to 6, you run everything out, right? You're out of removal, and this is like the most efficient way you can draw another 7.
Sure. Yeah, no, that's fair. Oh, yeah. Wow. It's a good thing I bought this card when I did. I got it. God, it actually spiked. Land Equilibrium, sorry, off topic.
No, please.
Spiked to $200 when Ultimate Masters was out, and it leveled back out. I think I made this deck. Yeah, I got it. Actually, I think I may have spent $70 to $80 for it. So I paid about right.
Sure.
Because I always get them a little bit cheaper. So yeah. Anyways, that was me breaking the bank. I could have done a Tabernacle.
That's what I thought you were gonna do.
But I am not Forest Day 2 Wong.
Yeah, you're not a coward, and you also know your place.
Bring us home with this deck tech. You got no budget, man. Are you actually breaking the bank, or are you just giving me some cheap little doohickey?
I'm giving you another win con, and it's one of my favorite cards in Magic history that fits this deck and your playstyle very well. And I'm mostly doing this for the lulz. So, like I said, I think if you want to cut Decree of Silence, if you do that, I would recommend cutting Solemnity, right?
Okay.
But if you want to keep that package in, I would cut Swiftfoot Boots. I was kind of thinking about like, Stasis or something like that because it's a little bit more symmetrical. But again, with this play style, Stasis doesn't hurt you because you're just going to untap, wait, untap, wait, untap, wait while everyone else is suffering and someone's got to get rid of it.
Players don't get an untap step with Stasis.
Wait, hold on.
Then during your upkeep, I got to pay a blue.
Right.
So the Stasis thing is with Smothering Tithe.
Right. Which is like, so that I think that's also an option potentially for you because that only plays into one other card you have, right? Yeah. So like there's a few ones here and it really struck me. But we talked again about getting a win con on the lockdown, right? Because there are times when you don't have the knowledge pool, you don't have your combos or anything going like that, right? So what is the card that we have talked the most about in decks like this that can win the game by itself?
Lab Band?
No.
I'm scared.
Elspeth's Sun Champion.
Oh my god!
Put her in. She's my girlfriend, and she's back from the dead. So, for those who haven't listened to us ever before, Elspeth's Sun Champion is the best Planeswalker ever printed, coming in at $12. So,
whoa! You might be eating your words there, sir. What is the best Planeswalker that's ever been printed?
Oh, I'm sorry, Tybalt the Fiend-Blooded. What a fool.
Yeah.
The second best one ever in white. So she's a legendary Planeswalker, comes in with 4 loyalty, which I checked with Solemnity. It does not count on Planeswalkers, or else that would be a humongous nombo. +1, create 3/1/1 soldier tokens that are white. -3, destroy all creatures with power 4 or greater. -7, you get an emblem with creatures you control, get +2/+2 and have flying. So my girl comes in the clutch yet again. She can win the game on her own. She can board wipe because, again, you're going to die to bigger creatures, big or small.
Sure.
She gives you blockers, so even if you aren't going to have it locked down, you can still go from there. And if you get her out and then play a stasis effect of some variety that locks down the game, you are still going to win the game. Chipping away, chipping away, chipping away, chipping away.
Yeah, it's fine.
It's not. I did my fun one. So you told me to try to do fun ones. So I had my Azors in there. I had the Kismets and all that stuff. But you need a way to win this game, and this card is the one that can do it for you the fastest and the most traditional way.
Sure. It's all right. I'm going through my cards really quick. Just to make sure there's not some like
Planeswalker
non-bow or something. Yeah, I just want to make sure it's not going to throw me into a non-bow with it. I don't see anything off the top of my head, especially since I misunderstood the overburden, and this obviously wouldn't punish me. So, I mean, look, I'm not going to go actively buy one for the deck.
Sure.
But if I have one sitting downstairs, or if I pull one out of the deck, because it's not that great of a Planeswalker, it's about as bad as getting a Jura.
Dare you?
Lol. But no, I think, once again, it's kind of like... It's not to the extreme, but it's kind of like Time Twister, to where I already have a couple Elspeth Sun champions, and I'm not as white hot as you are on her. But if I was at a Magic Fest IRL, or if I saw a good deal for one for like $6, $7, yeah, I might pick that up. And you know what else you guys could pick up is the ending I'm about to dish out, and the details about our giveaway from our sponsor, Level 1 Game Shop. We're going to be giving away that Chaos Draft Set, which will include 4 CMD Tower playmats. You can choose to have them signed or not. We'll tell you, me and Big Tuck signatures are a suck it.
I'll sign it 3 times if you want, no problem.
And 4 packs of our CMD Tower sleeves, and 4 random pre-release kits, which I will start to give little hints on what those are. One of them is M21.
Oh, sick.
To enter, it's extremely simple. Just help promote the content you guys are watching, listening to, everything that we produce. You get an entry for every interaction you do with us on social media. You get entries for following us. You get entries for subscribing to us. Basically, just do it all. We will announce the winner on MTG Action 4 News August 4th and social media soon after. And yes, I know what you're thinking. We're doing these giveaways each month. As long as you guys keep supporting Level 1 and supporting us, Level 1 will keep hooking us up. But you know what? It'd be great if you guys could leave that 5-star review on your podcast platform or on YouTube. It really, helps us know that you guys like the content, or if we should suck it ourselves. If you enjoyed it, leave some positive feedback as well. And share it with your friends. Sharing's caring. Synergy. If you'd like to reach out to us and know how you can find more ways to enter into the contest, here's how you can do that. You can reach me at Mr. Combo number 5 on Twitter, all spelled out except for the 5. Big Tuck, where can they reach you as you're crying in this pool of your tears, just knowing that you're probably going to see this deck in the coming weeks?
Oh, gosh. Well, I'm still on Twitter at Big Tuck Tweeting, and you can always get me at Big Tuck at cmdtower.com.
Oh, there it is. There it is.
You can reach our main account at CMD Tower on Twitter as well. You can go to our website, cmttower.com. Basically, all you guys gotta do is type in a crawl space, a mana crypt, a disenchant, a tower.
How very fun.
It's good. It's great.
Scream McGee, if people want to find out how to get a hold of yourself, how would they do that?
Oh, you can find me on Facebook or Instagram at Rich Chaos Records. You can also find me at Dear Squee, or I guess we're bringing the email back, so that's dearsquee at cmdtower.com. Send me, I don't know, whatever you got. Just nudes. No sketchy attachments. Nudes could be sketchy attachments.
Nudes, lewds, and cool dudes.
We'll go ahead. No nudes. I don't want any nudes. Keep those to yourselves. None of that. Just nothing.
He wakes up tomorrow and he's got 2 emails. One of them's from Mr. Combo. It's like, important, please read. One of them's from Big Tuck. It's like, I need your help on this. It's just nudes from both of us. You've seen it before.
You're going to see it again. He can also, on top of handling our nudism, he can handle all your audio needs and does have a full studio if you want to come record in the Kansas City metro area. If you guys would like to let our sponsor know that you appreciate what they do for us and helping us get this content out there to you, you should really just go place some orders with them. Level1gameshop.com. And when you place an order in the order notes, just type in CMD Tower so that you came from The Collective. Outside of their own storefront, they do have that TCG store as well, where you can get all your singles and things like that. They also do have the CMD Tower playmat and sleeves, as well as everything else you need from a Magic the Gathering and board game perspective. Another way you can support us is over to our Patreon. Patreon.com/CMD Tower. We still have the reward tiers from as simple as chatting with Chuck the Slice. Yes, that's a reward. It's not a given. Not everyone gets this privilege.
No.
To even getting a guest spot on the cast yourself. With your own sweet brew. As well as every tier does give you additional entries into the monthly giveaways. And really, guys, your contributions each month really do help pay the podcast hosting fees. It helps get the equipment to do the YouTube videos. It's going to help us, whenever we can be IRL, be able to start recording live gameplay videos, and helps us streaming. So definitely don't think that this money just goes to me buying $500 mana crypts. And thank you again to Pink Royal for the music provided in the episode. So, Big Tuck, you said we would never talk about this deck. We did. Lavinia institutes a citywide lockdown. Is it as bad as you remember?
It's just like, it's very frustrating because looking at this deck on paper, it makes a lot of sense, right? And I think so I will commend you on, like, you did build this deck to do exactly what it wants, right? This is a Cole Hain in Chicago deck. Drink. And I think it's like if you made 6 cuts from this deck, it would be like, this is the best stack Sex has ever made, right? It's got creatures, it's got these crazy interactions, it's got these bizarro 3-card combos. So maybe it's like, or I don't know. Do you think so? Because again, like you said, you always just get nailed out the front of it, right? So this doesn't really work. But like, I think there's also a universe in where you play this, where you're like, okay, this could shut down the game right now. I'm gonna give it another turn or something like that, right? So I guess like, but I can also understand your point of view of saying like, well, why did I even build this deck in the first place if that's the case?
Yeah, so you got to think about it this way. So if I went into it with that mindset, like, oh, I could do that. Well, I mean, if you have like 20 tokens and a crater hoof, are you just gonna be like, I'm just gonna hang back. I'm not gonna do what my deck wants to do. Or, you know, you have a bunch of planeswalkers, you got a doubling season in hand. I'll just hang back. I'm not gonna cast it. Like, no one really in Magic does that. Now, I think where you do have your modality and choice is counter spells, removal, board wipes. Those are the things to be like, do I really want to do that now, or would I rather just wait and just kind of see how stuff plays out? That's really where I think you can have the choice in a stacks deck and how you are instant speed or sorcery board wipe reacting to your opponents. Right. Oh, you know what? Maybe I'll let him do his thing for a turn and then I'll get rid of it. But I think when you have you got to stop and slow down stuff. You can't wait, because we've seen what happens in Magic. Like, literally with you and your Gerard, you know, Duff was kind of worried about me. Oh, yeah. Didn't really focus on you. You know, you could almost say that in his mind, he was like, man, if I was just giving you a turn and then I was going to do something. I just thought it was cool that you had this 35 Lord of Extinction, and then you won the game on that turn. And that's,
and again, to your point, it's like, if you're going to play a stacks deck, you should play a stacks deck, right?
Yes.
So I can see that. Again, this isn't a deck I would particularly find fun to run. But it is, looking at the list, it is cool that you have these like Mana Tides and Magus of the Wheels and stuff. I think the other issue is that I think the 2 or 3 times I've seen you play this deck, I've seen you play the exact same 5 cards somehow. So, like, you know.
Well, and the funny thing is, those 5 cards are the ones that I've talked about cutting from the deck, to where it's like, it makes it unfun for me as well. You know, I think Mana Vortex would be fine coming out turn 6, 7, 8. Like that sucks, and it's like, ooh, I'm on this countdown now. Hopefully I don't miss a land drop. But when you land at turn 3, it's just like, F you. Get out of here. All right, guys. Well, I'm going to head off and maybe play some EDH tonight.
Ooh.
Who really knows?
Oh, yeah, that's right.
See ya.
See ya.